First up, a story about helping farmers tackle pests, which are one thing Australia has an abundance of. From feral cats, rabbits, goats and pigs to wild dogs and plagues of kangaroos. Managing these pests is time-consuming as farmers grapple with increased work demands and complex firearm laws. But as Peter McCutcheon reports, there are many people out there happy to lend a hand. And a warning, there are some scenes in this report that viewers may find distressing.
It's a hard day's slog at the Andersons' cropping, feedlot and cattle breeding property in central Queensland.
Oh, well, there's 820 in the feedlot at the moment, and then there's 500 breeders, plus the weaners we're weaning now are all that's left in the paddock.
And today there's a couple more mouths to feed. 2 armed men on patrol. What they're doing and how they came to be here is a story about untapping the unrealised potential of Australia's shooting community.
Peter and Julia trying to raise cattle here. They'd had a fairly large crop of calves, and they lost 50 by the time they got in touch with me. 50 calves out of anyone's herd is a big loss.
Shooting doesn't always have the best rap, but certainly my experience, and I'm not a recreational hunter, I've never owned a firearm, so I'm not one of them, if you want to put it in that context. They certainly have done a lot of hidden public good.
If you thought guns went out of fashion after the 1996 Port Arthur massacre and buyback program, you'd be badly mistaken. Shooting in 2014 has never been more popular. Membership of organisations like Sporting Shooters of Australia skyrocketing.
There's been a steady increase, Peter, of about 10% per annum over 7 or 8 years now, which has been really, really pleasing from our perspective. In Queensland, we are about 9 times larger in membership than we were in pre-1996.
You're to fire 1 shot at each exposure. Detail action.
And many of these shooters, up to 300,000, according to a recent university survey, are recreational hunters.
And that was one of the interesting responses we got, is that they're doing that sort of recreational hunting, taking out pest animals now, but they actually want to do more.
And there's a lot more that needs to be done on properties like the Andersons' farm. The Andersons are still recovering from a wild dog attack on their herd earlier this year. It was deeply disturbing.
Some of the calves had, I reckon they'd only been born a few hours when they were killed, like it was, they just didn't have a chance, Not with 6 dogs in a pack, yeah, that's when they do the damage.
And it was just horrific, and I could just see cows not mothered up to their calves, and it was just such a distressing time. And Peter eventually came up and picked me up in the ute, and we went round and checked them all and made sure they were all mothered up on dark, but yeah, it was just night after night. It was very distressing.
In just weeks, they lost up to 40 calves.
And we felt terribly guilty, like we could have done more or something, but Peter's often very busy that time of day because it's a mixed farming enterprise. We don't stop. He'd have to be on the spray rig or doing something else or mixing feed or something, and I would be left, with the children and, yeah, hearing this noise pretty close to home.
Now, Peter Anderson knows how to handle a firearm, but spending hours tracking down elusive and dangerous animals was just too much.
I could have staked them out and spent, days and weeks doing it myself, but, it was dry and we were drought feeding and I had the feedlot in full operation and I had more than enough to do.
Baiting didn't work, so the Andersons called for help. Through Sporting Shooters, they were introduced to Tim Lawrence.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, good.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
And we selected Tim mainly because he was a bit more local than some of the other applicants. He's over at Glendon. It's only 2 hours away, and he does shift work in the mine, so he's got 4 or 5 days off at a time, so he could come over here and give it a pretty fair effort.
Tim took out 4 of the 6 dogs earlier this year, and today he's back to track down the remaining 2.
So where exactly were they?
Well, I found 2 sets of tracks coming out of the depot paddock. We call that the depot paddock, where in the black soil. I presume they cross the road towards the cultivation, which is next to the depot where you see the big silos, and cross that cultivation and go towards the dam at Cola.
Those other 2 are still getting around. We see their tracks, and Tim's determined to get them, and he enjoys what he's doing, so it's like a hobby or an outlet for him, and it's a big advantage to us.
Tim doesn't charge for this service. Sporting Shooters takes care of his insurance. Hunting for him is a welcome break, away from his day job as a mine engineer.
It's a camping trip, you know. It's an opportunity to come out, get out in the open, have a wander around, keep fit. I'm stuck behind a desk for a lot of my job. So yeah, this keeps me out, keeps me active.
He's part of a national program Sporting Shooters call Farmer Assist, which is being rolled out first in Queensland with the support of the rural lobby group AgForce. So what sort of farmers are taking up the offer?
We've had a lot of graziers so far, so sheep and cattle operations. I've had a number of graziers from Cunnamulla, Junda, Longreach areas ask me about it and call the AgForce office to find out more about it. And there's been a bit of spread from word of mouth there as well.
The main reasons why farmers want a shooter on their property is to get rid of pigs and wild dogs. Wild dogs in particular cost producers hundreds of millions of dollars a year and were recently declared a pest of national significance. There's also an increasing problem with kangaroos, and culling macropods requires special permits.
At the moment we're seeing some significant drought, with about 80% of the state drought declared, and we're seeing kangaroos competing with the livestock, cattle and sheep.
But letting strangers with guns onto farms needs careful managing, and ultimately it all comes down to trust. We're talking about keen amateurs with guns going onto private property. There's a lot that could go wrong, isn't there?
There's always a risk, I would assume, Peter, but the system and the program that Sporting Shooters have set up in Farmer Assist, there's a lot of checks and balances that they put in place. They put a lot of thought into it, into how they're going to operate it and manage it, and also maintain the credibility and the reputation of the program itself.
Those checks include signing up to a code of conduct and passing an accuracy test. Shooters have to be able to hit an 8-centimetre target 5 times from 100 metres away. As a British Army veteran and competitive target shooter, Tim Lawrence works within 1/10 of this range, about the size of a small coin.
If you can't shoot, you're not going to make it. You have to be a reasonable shot. And it's important because it might seem a bit washy, but if you're going to come out and start shooting animals, the least you can do is be humane about it. You don't want to start winging animals and then sending them back into the bush to die slowly. It's not what we're about. Yeah. Right, these are the ones from this morning going that way. So I reckon he's going to be coming back this evening.
It is all volunteer, and it's the great Australian way of helping out a mate, helping out a farmer, and developing a relationship that both sides can benefit.
Joining Tim on this expedition is Matt Godson, a project officer with Sporting Shooters.
You're trying to second guess what the dog's actually going to do. What I've noticed with this one is you'll see his tracks going towards the farmhouse in the morning, and then he'll come back either in the evening or in the morning. I haven't been able to figure that out yet. And then he just stays away for a day. So where we found those tracks on the path heading sort of in towards the farmhouse, hopefully either this evening or tomorrow morning, he's going to be heading back home, I guess. Yeah, hopefully we'll nail him.
The work is mainly done in the late evening and early morning. It's a job that requires patience and endurance.
I don't mind looking for the dogs and not finding them. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's not a job for people that just want to wander around and put holes in things. You're not going to. Hunting is hunting, it's not shooting.
From time to time, Tim looks through his scope for any hint of movement in the bushes, but the evening hours passed without incident. The wild dog appeared just after dawn, taken out with a single shot from 30 metres. It was a dingo domestic hybrid. There are few of any purebred dingoes in this part of the world.
So how many hours' work have you put into this one dog?
This dog I've known about for a while. In fact, I've known about it since the first time I visited. I've just never been able to catch sight of her. I would have spent 3, 4, 5, 6, and this morning 7 hours staking out that dog. So I'm very pleased this morning. It's not bloodlust, it's an achievement. I don't know if you're going to show pictures, but those teeth, yeah, they pull calves apart. Yeah, it's not a pet dog.
Not too bad, mate. You? Oh, good, thanks, mate.
There are other ways recreational hunters could help with land management. According to a recent survey, 77,000 shooters were asked if they'd be prepared to pay an environmental levy every time they bought hunting equipment. Remarkably, most of those surveyed said yes.
And we got 60% responding that they would be happy to pay a 5% tax, and another 30% saying they'd be willing to pay a 10% tax for conservation.
There is scope for that, Peter. It's proven to be an incredibly successful program in the United States, where it's been operating now for almost 80 years. So I think there's some scope here in Australia. Mind you, there are some real obstacles in the minds of many of our members.
Yes, because it's very unusual for an organisation to be advocating its members pay a new tax.
Well, as I say, we'd be very, very cautious in promoting that, primarily because I would believe that probably the average Australian is not necessarily convinced that their tax dollar is spent as wisely as it might be, is not managed as wisely as it might be, and they probably, without being too critical, don't necessarily trust governments of any colour to not to keep their hands out of the till.
Nevertheless, the Sporting Shooters Association is attempting to promote its green credentials. This property, just west of Brisbane, is owned by Sporting Shooters Australia and is a registered nature reserve, despite the fact that it includes a shooting range. Sporting Shooters President Jeff Jones says the Queensland Government is now planning to plant over 100,000 trees here to increase the local koala population. And you'd be the sort of landowner that would be able to keep feral pests under control, I imagine.
Most definitely. That's part of the contract that we have with the government. We are obligated to keep the feral animals under control.
Will this be seen as a type of rebranding, if you like, of Sporting Shooters? Be more attractive to parts of Australia that have been hostile towards firearms?
Well, I suppose it could be construed that way, but I think it's part of, if you like, an evolutionary process. The world is changing, and all sorts of sports and activities need to change along with it.
It's a change the Andersons very much welcome. Linking up with a shooter they can trust is not only insurance for their farming business, it also brings peace of mind to a young family. Do you think Tim will keep coming back here?
I'd like him to. It's up to him, and I really hope he does continue. And yeah, this is just as much his home too as ours, I reckon.
Coming back's not a problem. I got into this in order to help out the farmers. Peter and Julia are wonderful people. They're very keen and happy to see me when I turn up, and that goes a long way towards it as well.